Back in 2007, a city in Ukraine called Dnipro was terrorized by a string of 21 murders that were extremely brutal and all happened in less than a month. This is the story of the Dnepropetrovsk MANIACS. This story is worse than Luka Magnotta, who you might know as the star of the Netflix documentary Don't F with Cats. Hey humans, it's Hannah. Welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you are new here. Our story starts on June 25th, 2007, when a 33-year-old woman is walking home from a friend's house. She walks by two boys, and one of them, out of nowhere, attacks her with a blunt object and beats her to death. She's almost unrecognizable, and a few hours later, her own mother has to find her body. Less than an hour later, after this woman is killed, a man that was sleeping on a bench nearby is also killed in a very similar manner. His face is so beaten in that he is completely unrecognizable. The murders continue every few days and often multiple in one day. On July 6, 2007, 3 people are killed all in one day. The first one was a man just walking home from the club where he was also beaten to death, and his mother had to find his body. The second one was a 28-year-old woman also killed with a hammer. And third, another woman who was also killed who had children and a husband with a disability. On July 7th, 2007, just the next day, there's 2 14-year-old boys that are just fishing together. They are also attacked, and one of them gets killed in a very similar manner. The other one manages to escape. He runs away, he hides in the woods until it's safe, and he managed to survive. A few days later, on July 12th, 2007, a 48-year-old man is also found. He had gone out on his motorcycle and was never seen alive again, and when they did find his body, it was very, very obvious that he had suffered an extremely brutal attack. This goes on for several more days, 21 people dying in total, and 8 more people that were attacked but survived. The photo you see now is of Igor and Victor with an animal hanging behind them. 2 Ukrainian boys who became vicious serial killers at only the age of 19 years old. Their favorite weapon was a hammer, though they used other objects as well. The 2 of them, along with a third boy named Alexander, all went to school together and had become friends when they were younger teenagers. I guess violent psychopaths tend to just gravitate towards each other. They would do weird things together when they were younger teenagers. For example, they would stand on a railing about 14 stories up just to help their fear of heights. Alexander supposedly had a fear of blood, and so the other 2 boys said, you know what would help with that? Killing and torturing lots and lots of animals. It escalated from there, and the boys started robbing people just a few months before the murder spree. That was the extent of Alexander's involvement. He participated in the animal abuse and the robberies, but allegedly refused to help Igor and Victor in their murder spree. So it's back to Igor and Victor, and Igor was the ringleader. Igor seemed to be the one that instigated all of this and encouraged the other boys, but it was discovered that these 2 boys, after they committed all these murders, they found lots and lots of photos, lots and lots of videos, and it seemed that the boys had some sort of weird fetish for documenting all their crimes against humanity. Some of the photos were of the 2 boys attending some of their victims' funerals, often seen laughing, smiling, flipping off their caskets and their coffins and their graves, things like that. As you saw before, they took lots of photos of animals that they had harmed and selfies with the animals they harmed. Of course, they also took many videos and many photos of their victims as they were killing them and also after they were dead. It gets a lot worse. One of the videos that they took of them killing the 48-year-old man that was on his motorcycle, we talked about him before, they took a full video of them murdering this guy and then they posted it on the internet and it leaked. It is floating around the internet somewhere still. I have never seen it. Unfortunately, I have heard some of the audio and that was way more than enough. It's horrifying. The video, if you remember, is called 3 Guys, 1 Hammer. I am not going to play the video out of respect for the victim. I'm not even going to play any of the audio just because I don't want to impose that on you. You can't unsee it. You can't unhear it. I will, however, be explaining what happens in the video for those of you that are curious, as well as some of the transcript that had been taken out of the video that I got from one of the sources that's linked down below. Go with caution. If you don't want to hear these details, I totally understand. I will put a timestamp on the screen of where you should skip to. I am going to talk about possible motives for these killings and what ended up happening to the boys after I'm done with this. So if you don't want to hear the details of the video, please skip, and I will see you over there. For those of you that do want to know what happens in the video but don't want to ruin your entire lives by actually witnessing any of it, stick around and I will tell you now. The 48-year-old man was riding home on his motorcycle through the woods. He has a family, yes, and he had also recently been diagnosed with cancer, I believe, in his throat. He was then suddenly ambushed and attacked by the two boys. They used a hammer, a screwdriver, and a knife. They stabbed the man and beat the man over and over in the head, in the abdomen, in the face, and tortured him a lot. The video is over 4 minutes long, and the most upsetting part is that the victim often goes in and out of consciousness. You can hear him trying to speak at some points, and he just doesn't die. At that point, everybody just wants him to be put out of his misery, and that's probably the most brutal part. At the end, they keep torturing him, keep torturing him. If you're dying, over 4 minutes is eternity. And then audio-wise, the worst part about this video is that you can hear his death gurgling, and you can hear the actual sounds that he's making as he dies. Some of the transcript. The transcript is overall jumbled and upsetting. Some of the things they say is, what, he's still alive after stabbing him so many times. One of them even said, wow, he's having an effing bad day. Later, one of them says, get over here fast, kill him already. The other one says, what? And then the first boy says, kill him already again. Later in the video, they say, he's not dead and I already poked his eyes out. Then as the two boys, after the victim was finally dead, they walked towards their car, washing off the murder weapons, washing off their hands, and lightheartedly talking amongst each other about how long it took for him to die, even though they were stabbing his literal brains. Welcome back if you skipped that part of the video. On July 23rd, 2007, all three boys were arrested. Hallelujah. Alexander's story ends here. Like I said, he wasn't part of any of the murders. He got 9 years in prison for the robberies and participating in those. Igor and Victor got life in prison for all their murderers. Ukraine does not do the death penalty, so that was not even possible for them to get that, but they were given life in prison for both of them, and they were only 19. There were some really weird things about the trial that I think is worth noting here. One of them, of course, did try to plead insanity in order to get leniency on their sentencing, and thankfully the prosecutors were able to argue that you were both really calculating and you both clearly planned each one of these murders, and the way in which they went about it showed that they obviously knew exactly what they were doing. So thankfully, neither of them were able to plead insanity. The two boys' families said they were innocent. The defense was trying to claim that they were innocent. They said that the videos and the photos were all altered and showed their faces only because people edited their faces into the videos and all the photos, even though after they were arrested, the murders obviously stopped. And it would take a lot longer to edit and alter all of those photos and videos. So thankfully, they were still charged for it. I think their parents, the only thing I can imagine is that they were in such deep denial because they didn't want to admit that they raised literal monsters. But it's just so crazy. I mean, they have videos of each other laughing and doing all these things, and the fact that they even tried to say that it wasn't even them just makes zero sense. What all of us want to know, and all of us of course think about in such a horrific case like this, is why. Why would they do something like this? What was their motive for killing so many people so brutally? Unfortunately, we may never know. They never gave a reason. They never had a direct motive. However, I do have some insight into some possibilities. The weirdest part about these murders and the hardest reason to find a motive is that they didn't seem to pick a particular person or a particular group of people. Most serial killers tend to gravitate towards a certain demographic, a certain gender, a certain age, a certain race when they kill people. And these boys literally just picked anybody vulnerable that they could find. They did all different ages, different genders, etc. So the weirdest part is that they just seem to pick all their victims at random. Not a lot of motive there. The other question many had was, did they do this for money? Did they do it to rob the victims and just get money and possessions? Well, no. They did rob some of the victims, and they even tried to sell some of their stuff at pawn shops, but they didn't rob all the victims. And as far as we know, the boys were raised in really affluent families. They didn't need money. If they were robbing them, it was just a fringe benefit, and that was just for fun, and they would have robbed all the victims. Plus, the victims were heavily tortured, sometimes before they were killed. And so if you were just going to rob somebody, there's no reason to torture them unless you enjoy it. If you were going to rob somebody, you would just kill them quickly. None of the victims were also sexually assaulted, which is also interesting, further proving that they were probably just getting a weird sick pleasure out of the violence. While it was never proven, one of them said that they would get lots of money for making the snuff films, that they could sell it overseas and make a ton of money if they made enough of these videos. But again, there's no proof that this ever actually happened or there was anybody to sell them to. And additionally, they did not need the money. As I said earlier, one of the really interesting parts was that when they were all younger, they wanted to fix their fear of heights by standing on a very dangerous railing high up, or they wanted to fix their fear of blood by killing animals. So did they try to fix a different fear by killing humans? Did they fear violence so much that they decided to jump so far into it that they'd be so desensitized they wouldn't be afraid of it? The most likely scenario, in my opinion, is that these boys were bullied in school. It made them feel weak and it made them feel powerless. And so, feeling angry about this, they wanted attention and they wanted to feel powerful. Hurting people made them feel invincible and powerful. Though ironically, ambushing vulnerable people seems like one of the most cowardly things you can do. They found that Igor, the leader of this little group, often collected newspaper clippings of the case of the people that he murdered. Sometimes he'd even add his own captions, handwritten on the papers. One of them had even said, "The weak must die, the strong will conquer."